Hello there, it's Sev here from Three Counties Motorhomes and welcome to the video guide for the Sargent EC480 panel and other very similar models. It will look something along the lines of this, and this is commonly found on auto sleepers and auto trail motorhomes, but there are other manufacturers and brands that use this panel as well, because of course it is a Sargent panel. It's not proprietary to any of those specific manufacturers or brands. So this is going to tell you how to interact with the panel, how to use it, what all the different functions and things do. So let's get into it. So first things first, the panel will look something like this when it's not been played around with for a while. There is a sort of timeout and inactivity timer and the screen will go blank. The panel is on usually whilst the motorhome may not be. So you can usually press these up and down buttons and cycle through all the different things, but the leisure battery and motorhome is not necessarily on, which is the case right now. To turn your motorhome on, we press the power button right here and we are good to go. We are powered up. Now, what I want to show first is the screens that we have access to. So I'll go through these buttons in a moment, but we'll talk about the different screens of information. So here we have two navigation buttons up and down, and then there is an enter or select button. The first screen usually has the brand of vehicle here. So in this case, we're in an auto sleepers and it has their logo in the center. And then we have the, I believe the external and internal temperatures just here. We have the time at the top and then the hardware and software numbers for the panel just there. Pressing down, we go to the systems levels page, which it says here at the bottom, and in brackets it gives a description. We're looking at batteries and water tanks. And then we have 4 bar gauges here. They do show different information though, although they do look similar. So the first 2 are for the batteries. We have voltage and vehicle and leisure batteries for the V and L, showing the respective battery voltages both on the bar display and as a numerical value at the top just there, as you can see. And then we have the tank capacities for the water, so fresh and wastewater tanks. And again, these are in percentages, again with a bar indication and also a numerical value there. Now, just to let you know, these water tank sensors will typically operate in 25% increments. So as you can see, we got exactly 50 there and exactly 25. What this is actually telling us is, for example, on the fresh tank here, this is telling us that we have at least 50%. The water level is somewhere between 50 and 75. Of course, if we were to be above 75, then 75 would be indicated. So we have less than 75, but more than 50% at the moment. Okay, and for the waste, it's the same thing. We have more than 25 in there. Ooh, and let's go back to the other page. Where are we? There we go. We have 25% at least, so we have between 25 and 50% there. Okay, if one of these was to say 0, it just means you got between empty and quarter of a tank. That's how that kind of works in 25% steps. Now the next screen down looks very similar, but it is actually very different. The reason it looks similar is because again we have 4 bar displays, but again it is different. This is the active battery data page, and as it says here, the leisure is the selected battery. We have a repeat of one of the gauges on the previous screen. We have the leisure battery voltage in bar and numerical format. We then have the battery capacity in amp hours, but it's not actually saying the capacity in amp hours. They're using AH as the symbol, but what we are actually seeing here is a percentage of battery capacity remaining, again in bar and numerical format. And I would take this with a pinch of salt, but it's a good indication of roughly how much energy capacity you have in your battery. And then we have the solar panel current output here, currently 0 because this vehicle is inside a building, so it's not picking up any sunshine for the solar panel to work. So this would show a green bar to indicate the amount of current being generated, and it would also be reflected on the numerical number at the top. And then here we have a ammeter for the battery. So this here is a positive and negative gauge, 0 being in the middle. So if we're drawing from the battery, we would see a negative number like we do now, because there is a numerical indicator at the top there. And if we're putting energy into the vehicle, then we would see a positive number. And that's the active battery data page. The next page we have here is for setting timers and the clock. So for example, we do need to set the time in this instance because it's not 5 to 9 in the evening, it's actually 20 to 4 in the afternoon. So as you can see all the cells here. If I press the enter button, we're going to select one of the cells in white. Okay, so I'm going to now change this to the number I need. So I need that to be 15. There we go. And it's actually 1542, so I can now move that down. There we go. And press enter. And basically you can change whatever you need. Enter here is just going to cycle all of the cells, and you can change them as you see fit. But then when you get to the last cell, the next press of enter is going to refresh the page. The selector has disappeared, and now these arrows will not change a number. They will go back to cycling the pages. But that's how you can set an alarm time, choose whether or not the alarm is off, set an event start and end time, and of course turn the event timer off if you need. And then here, if I press down, we just get a big clock. And then we're back to the main page. So I'm going to turn the light on just in here because it's getting a bit dark. So let's now talk about the buttons we have here. So of course, we've already mentioned the power button. It typically will turn on your main lighting circuit at the same time, but you can turn this off, of course, with a button press. This here will turn on or off the water pump. Okay. This button here will typically turn on or off an outside awning light. This button here is usually used for indirect lighting, and this will vary motorhome to motorhome. In this particular instance, I don't think it has a function, but you'll just have to press that button and see what lights it changes, if at all, with your particular vehicle. Like I say, sometimes it won't do anything, it will just be a spare. We then have the battery swap button, which I'll talk about in a moment, and then we have your tank heater. Now this is typically set up to a fresh tank heater. In most of the situations where I see this setup, this control panel and things set up, is normally where you have a fresh tank heater here on the panel, and a waste tank heater might be somewhere else as a physical switch elsewhere in the vehicle. Now, if you have tank heaters fitted, this button here will, of course, turn the power on to that particular tank heater. It may be, if you only have one heater, it could be for your waste, it could be for your fresh, you might have another one elsewhere. You'll just have to refer to your vehicle documentation to find out if you have tank heaters fitted and which one this button is going to be operating. But that's essentially what it is. So, lastly, let's now talk about the battery swap. So in this instance, as you can see, when I go to the active battery data page, it says that we are on the leisure battery, which is, of course, what we should be using. But if you have this button, you have the ability to switch the battery that is currently being charged by your mains powered battery charger. Now, the only way that this is actually possible to be changed is because you're actually changing the battery connected to the motorhome. So, for example, if I was to switch to the vehicle battery now, yes, that would now mean it can receive charge from a mains powered battery charger, but it will also drain that particular battery if we're not connected to mains electric, or if the battery charger is not actually working. So, for example, at the moment you can see we are not oh, I didn't mean to press it just then. I meant to press this. As you can see at the moment, we are draining the leisure battery. We are not plugged into mains electric, because normally there will be a lightning bolt at the top here to indicate we're plugged into mains electric. So if I now press this button, we have switched over to the vehicle battery. It says here at the bottom, and we are draining it just the same amount. So it is possible to switch batteries regardless of whether you're plugged into mains electricity or not. So it is very important that you, as the owner of the vehicle, make sure that before you press this button, the battery charger is on and working before you do so. Otherwise you will drain your vehicle battery, and you should never run your motorhome on the vehicle battery. Okay, it should always run on the leisure battery. The only reason to switch batteries is to charge the vehicle battery. So we need to get this vehicle plugged into electric, and then I'll come back. So here we are. As you can see, we're now plugged into mains electricity. We have the lightning bolt at the top bar of the screen there showing that we are connected. You can see on the active battery data page here for the leisure battery, we are seeing a much higher voltage now in the leisure battery, and the ammeter is indicating quite a considerable amount of current going in because the battery is now charging up. Okay, and this is what it will look like, of course, when you're on mains electricity. Now, this now means that I can clearly see energy's going in, the battery charger's clearly working. Now it's more than acceptable to switch over to the vehicle battery because, as you can see, the vehicle battery, now that we've switched, it says vehicle down there, the ammeter is clearly showing that we are putting in energy. So even though we are technically running the motorhome on the vehicle battery now, it's being charged at the same time, and we've got a surplus of energy that's going into the battery, meaning it's charging. So we're all good. However, you may notice that on the active battery data page with the vehicle battery selected, we lose the capacity gauge. That's disappeared. That has gone. And that is normal, okay? So you don't have the ability to see the forecasted capacity of the battery. You still get the voltage readout, you still see the solar panel output, and you still see the battery ammeter, but you lose the capacity gauge. But that's one way of being able to tell very quickly without having to read the writing here in the bottom corner, which means you can read from much further away. You can quite clearly see whether or not you are on the vehicle battery or the leisure battery based on whether or not you have 3 or 4 bar gauges on this particular page. Otherwise, everything else is going to remain the same. The systems level page will look exactly the same. Just in this instance, the vehicle battery voltage is, of course, higher than the leisure battery voltage, as you would expect. And that's basically it. Now, when you switch back to the leisure battery, again, it typically will switch to the active battery data page whenever you press this button, just so that you can see the effects of your changes immediately. And as you can see, we're now back on the leisure battery. The capacity gauge has returned, and yeah, that's basically it. And of course, if I go back to the systems levels page, you can see that now the vehicle battery voltage is starting to tail back off again to a resting voltage, whilst the leisure battery voltage is high. And that is basically it for this panel. It's very, very simple to use. Just to recap, of course, this indirect lighting button here may serve absolutely no function in your vehicle, or it may. You just have to press it and find out whether or not any particular lights are turning on or off. Of course, this will only work if you have an outside awning light, but typically that's always going to be wired up to that. And then with regards to the tank heaters, just double check if you have tank heaters fitted to your vehicle, and if so, do you have both waste and fresh heaters, and again, if so, which heater is going to be affected by this power switch on the panel. So yeah, there we go. That's the EC480 panel, or similar models as well from Sargent, typically found in auto sleepers and auto trail models, but of course other brands and manufacturers as well. I'm Sev, and I hope you found this video useful and informative, and thank you very much for watching. Take care.